I really am not sure about the intricacies of it. And I do know that Equifax has been hacked, right, in the United States. A lot of people have been hacked, right? So especially when you're now talking about a hacking. So this is not even they were evading compliance. It's very difficult to say. If you look at the use cases that lead to fraud, there are so many, right? So there's hacking, there's identity, there's the whole, getting one person from multiple accounts, lender shopping.
This is going to be an interesting one today because there are a lot of things that are happening in Nigeria's tech space. One, most recently, is the fact that one of Nigeria's most valuable companies, Flutterwave, was hacked, and people or fraudsters or whoever they are actually made away with about 2.4 billion naira. But that's not the main issue. The main issue is layers and layers and layers below, which we rarely ever talk about. So that's just a symptom of every other thing that's going on in Nigeria's tech space. So what if I told you this NIN, PVN, and a lot of other seemingly unrelated things are all actually tied closely together? And who best to help us make sense of that than Esigie Aguele, the CEO, Managing Director of Verify Me, and is here to talk about a lot of things regarding identity and Verify Me. Well, yeah. So let's try and verify if I got the name correctly.
You did.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
So thanks for coming to this podcast. We've been trying to schedule this for quite a long time now, and I'm so glad we finally got to do this.
For sure. Same here.
Same here. So, but before we go on, right, let's try to find out, like, why is Verify Me important? So for our audience, whoever, we're going to be delving into a lot of tick heavy topics. So, but let's try to understand why Verify Me is important. Why should anyone really care about what Verify Me is? And yeah, we should start becoming afraid of anything that does not have Verify Me.
Exactly. So Verify Me is important because we bring security to transactions so that businesses can onboard customers quickly in a compliant way. We provide access to authoritative sources of identity, government resources that we partner with. Now, the reason Verify Me is important mostly is because identity is important for payments. In fact, you can't have identity without payments. And this is how we think about our life and our existence, right? Is that there's the identity and then there's payments. And after payments, really the attributes of payments, we always talk about the type, the value, the frequency, leads to data as a science where you can mine and give, all kinds of additional analytics on individuals. And then that leads to credit, lending, mortgages, car loans. So looking at that stack that we've just given from identity, payments, analytics, and then loans, right? You see that the reason Verify Me is so important is because we are helping to power the open banking infrastructure in Nigeria and identity. And when you open it, you really realize that identity is the foundation of economic growth.
So talking about identity and payments, right? I want to give an example of a friend of mine. He's an Instagram vendor. He sells high-end computer gadgets, and I actually buy a lot of stuff from him. So, well, apparently he was defrauded one day. He sold 3.5 million naira worth of Alienware laptops to a company. He got a lot. Then the alert was fake.
Wow.
Then I think the alert was fake. Then he tried to track the company down. So that the address was a dud, everything was a dud. He couldn't find any information about the supposed company. So that's how I lost about 3.5 million naira. So how would this have helped him? How would this identity management have helped him? Because he clearly didn't know that this company exists.
Yeah, so, and it would have helped him from maybe a different angle because you generally don't check the identity of people that you're buying things from. But let me actually tell you what the real use case is here. Part of the problem is that perhaps, and we should continue to consider, that there is a proliferation of access to the identity endpoints in Nigeria that we have, so that there are people that can pull data, know what somebody's phone number is. They don't have a payment gateway, but they can use that phone number in their app, right, to send you a text that looks like you've received an alert, but there was no real transaction behind it. But if you look at the root cause of that problem, most likely, and this is where we always engage the government, it looks like one of the things we need to continue to do better in Nigeria is to make sure that there's an integrity behind the number of people that you are licensing. So I'll give you an example. if you have an agency that has licensed 100 people to access to their endpoint, it's going to be very difficult to manage, and most likely you're going to be fraught with fraud, because in there you will have briefcase companies, you have companies where KYC is not their exact business, but you're just licensing so many people. So we always encourage agencies to do what most or all developed countries do when they get into data partnerships, is not to give 100, to give 4 or 5 bona fide that you can properly regulate with heavy fines when there are infractions. Companies like VerifyMe, and even any of our bona fide competitors, probably there are 1 or 2, will never, be caught in that kind of circumstance, because we vet all our customers. So you cannot come and get an endpoint for access in VerifyMe and not be a real business. And we do that because we're licensed, and we do that because KYC is our business. We understand we can be breached. So I do feel a little bit of it is across the board, more stringent regulation, tightening of access, more monitoring. Looking at that particular use case, that's probably a use case that will solve some of those issues. Sure.
That's an interesting one. So can you share a success story of a business that used VerifyMe and actually witness some amount of growth, or probably stay more compliant or anything, like an actual practical story?
Yeah. So I could share more than one. So I think last year there was a huge Twitter story on an individual who had committed a crime, violent crime. And this was actually by police, because we build a lot of infrastructure behind our police as well, and have access and helping with criminal data. And he had committed a crime in another local government, but because of VerifyMe, they were actually able to get an alert that he was a repeat offender, and they didn't let him go. And they were able to basically adjudicate based on that information. So that's one, I would say, government use case that we're really, really proud of. We have other use cases in insurance. We've had insurance companies, as you know, about 70%, 80% of Nigerians are on USSD for the most part, right? And insurance is at 0.3% penetration in Nigeria, because they can't access, because first of all, micro insurance, if you're selling it, would probably be the thing that would scale in Nigeria. In order to get to micro insurance, the channel will be USSD, because that's where most of the people are. So using, because of our channels and our infrastructure, you can access customers over USSD, over API. So we actually partnered with one of a large insurance company, and I believe we had them open over, I think it was about 80,000 insurance, wow. I would say, accounts yeah. Basically in a quarter, which was way higher they had initially anticipated. Another way, we actually have a customer now, even going back to fraud, because really KYC is our business. So we're not just about identity. We're actually beyond identity, and we're not just about APIs. We're actually beyond APIs. So in an instance, somebody potentially, maybe this is where it comes with maybe 2 BVNs or 2 NINs, because you have used our facial recognition product, that person, we would actually be able to alert you that person has also opened a different account, because we basically give every facial biometric its own unique ID and resolve it that way. So we also, solve problems for our customers that way. And we've actually detected multiple accounts with some of our customers as well. So these are some of the use cases that we're very proud of.
Okay, so on serious note, what if the person is a twin? You mentioned facial recognition.
Yes.
How does it identifies the unique features of the face, even though the person is an identical twin? That's cool. That's cool. So talking about fraud prevention, KYC,
and I can answer that, by the way.
Oh, okay, continue.
Yeah. So, and this is why regulation is so important, right? Because there needs to be an adjudication process for that. It's an edge case. It's going to happen maybe 3-4% of the time. And what government needs to do, right, and it needs to partner with business to make it easy. So when someone has been flagged, all they have to do is really show, I'm not this person, here's my birth certificate, I'm a twin, right? And create a system where they can be easily removed and even flagged, right? So that that's not shown, known about them in the future in terms of, so there are ways we can build so many products around that. But it's a combination of products and processes, really.
Oh, that's an interesting one. So I'm saying interesting a lot too much today, but it's fine. No but you talked about fraud prevention, right? There's a comment that I saw when the Flutterwave news broke. They talked about, say, fintech companies not sharing information. They don't talk to each other. So the lending companies are not talking to themselves. So one person can borrow money from 20 lending companies, and get away with it, basically. So then at the end of the day, they start chasing the person, chasing his family members, chasing his pastor and everybody. So, but how do you think we can solve that particular part of information sharing? How does it work currently? How does this data sharing work in Nigeria?
Yeah, so data sharing in Nigeria is still being discussed. There's different types of data sharing. So there's bad debt data sharing, which is shared with CBN, for example, and credit agencies have access to. But then there's fraud data sharing, which is a little bit ambiguous, and there's no real repository to share it. Now, what we can announce is I can say that those of us Nigerian operators in the business are actually already in talks to start sharing fraud data, because we have a lot of fraud data from our customers that can report to us. So this is something that's eventually going to happen, right? So that we can provide more services for our customers. And actually, I think you probably in the short-coming weeks, you're going to see some announcements of this, probably driven by some of what has happened incidentally. And it's just such unfortunate for Flutterwave because they're such a powerhouse. And have done so much across Africa for business. They've been so successful. This, I believe, could have happened to anyone, and a lot of people can be hacked. So really it's about looking at it from the perspective of really trying to solve the problem from a federated perspective, and looking at the whole thing: regulation, collaboration, real systems building. And when I say systems building, I look at that natural selection under that. It's so important because I always tell people in engineering, or when you're building regulated systems, what doesn't break or what is sustainable, right, is when you build something and put things where you feel they should naturally be.
So if I get you correctly, fraud data sharing right now is not really that big of a deal right now as we speak.
But it will be, yes.
It will be?
Yes.
Okay, so but do you think this Flutterwave hack could have been prevented?
I'm not sure about the intricacies of it, and I don't want to, I really am not sure about the intricacies of it. And I do know that Equifax has been hacked, right, in the United States. A lot of people have been hacked, right? So especially when you're now talking about a hacking. So this is not even they were evading compliance. It's very difficult to say. If you look at the use cases that lead to fraud, there are so many, right? So there's hacking, there's identity, there's the whole, getting one person from multiple accounts, lender shopping, where you're not going to pay back, doing the pyramid payments, until you get enough money. So there are different types of it. So that's what I would say. The least actually that can be prevented probably is the hacking hacking one, when you think about it, but I'm not really familiar with the intricacies of it. Yeah.
Okay.
But they work hard, and they try, so it's really very difficult to say.
Yeah. So I mean, Flutterwave itself might not have seen this coming, but from a regulatory standpoint, could there have been things in place where stuff like this could be nipped in the bud, or maybe if it happens, you're able to catch the perpetrators?
Yeah, so, and in fact, let me say national and not federal, because federal may sound political. Let's remove politics out of it, right? Let's nationalize, just so that, we're sharing data.
Okay.
There's always the need for regulation. I can tell you this, right? It's easy to always blame the private companies, but how many people have been robbed, had their money, taken from a bank? I had somebody robbed, I know somebody robbed with a POS, where they basically charged his card, right, and took all the money. And that was 3 years ago. With all his reports, police report, they were never able to identify the owner of that POS. That is not a private sector problem, right? You see what I'm saying, right? This is not a private sector problem. And there are many, many situations in Nigeria, right, where we have serious crime, right, and the government is unable, right, to identify, catch, or do anything about the people who are perpetrating the fraud. So it's really good to stop blaming private sector, and I think a lot of people need to focus on, doing more competent jobs.
So what's the missing key here now for Nigerian government? What's that missing link that we're not saying yet? That where should we have these conversations? Who should we be talking to in this case to make this done at a national level?
Yeah, so it's a whole revision has to be done. What is the process? Can you really easily go to a police station and get justice even when you're robbed? You see what I'm saying? I know many countries where if you wake up and the money's taken from your account, all you have to do is go to a police station and make a statement, right? And you literally don't have to do anything again, right? You won't fund the investigation either, right? And so these are some of the things that we even need to deal with. So what is the missing issue in Nigeria? We really need to put people with the right type of capacity in leadership positions.
You mentioned not seeing private sector as an enemy. Is that something you've experienced?
Yes.
So far, so good.
Yes. It's very difficult to do business in Nigeria because a lot of times you are fighting regulators and you're fighting agencies who are either competing in some way, agencies building apps and that they shouldn't be building. Yes, it's very difficult.
Okay, let's keep
it in the camera. It's very difficult.
You talked about the difficulties of operating in Nigeria due to regulations, and any other challenges you face with any of the projects you've tried to work on or tried to build.
Yeah, I mean, there are challenges every day. You just keep pushing, right? You keep trying to socialize your ideas. You try to collaborate. So we collaborate a lot, the identity companies, but we face challenges every day. And so that's why we continue to pray that we have people with the right type of capacity in office so that we don't have to face some of those challenges.
Okay, so talking about getting these identity services to more businesses, how are you thinking about making this more accessible? So I'm thinking not just the big companies, not just the payment guys, the regular guy running an Instagram business like that, my friend, should be able to access the services and verify identities of his customers and do all the whole nice analytics and all of that. Maybe not at a large scale, maybe at a small level, but how are you thinking about accessibility to a larger audience for your business?
Yeah, and the Instagram business guy can. And we thought about it. So we have a portal. So there are 3 ways our services can be used. Over a portal internet, which is more on a retail small business product. Most of our business is API, or you can use our software development kit for customers who want more control. It's a low-code solution, and it sits in their environment as well. Anyone from the big business to the small retail business to the individual can actually use our services for verification, and we're very affordable, which is one of the things that we pride ourselves in. We're here to make sure people can establish trust for their transactions.
So, but do you think on the individual and retail level, much adoption is happening right now?
No, but it will. It will. So adoption is slow in Nigeria, and we understand that. We've studied it, right? And there are many reasons. It's really difficult when you have so many other challenges to always start thinking about new things and adopting those new things. And particularly when there are challenges, it's also more difficult to trust new things when they come up. The second thing about it is the use cases for retail verification. I can't talk much about it now, but we are reimagining a lot of the use cases for retail. But yes, we're always building. We probably release about 4 or 5 products every year. So
you released one, Core ID.
We did.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Core ID is more than a product, actually. It's our B2B platform. It's our B2B business that's expanded across Africa. So it's in Ghana and it's in Kenya now as well. And what we do is it's basically our API and SDK services to any of our B2B customers that's looking for infrastructure, which is identity access for compliance or onboarding, that's looking for technology. So we give SDKs, we build workflows to make onboarding seamless for customers, biometrics for compliant verification, so solving some of the fraud issues that we have, helping them with re-authentication when customers lose their passwords. We have 40,000 agents across the country. So the next is last mile, we call it, because we do tier 3 address verifications and a lot of other tier 3 verifications for our fintech customers as well. And then finally, alternative credit. Which is, giving alternative credit scores. And in technology also, we're going to be giving fraud analytics. We actually have a product called Fraud View that's being launched. And I can say the name because it's trademarked and patented, so you can't get it.
Oh.
So these are the layers with which we operate. The cool thing about us is we own all our rails, we own our technology, we build our technology unlike any competitors who, is kind of pulling strings of, different people's businesses together. So we can give you the most concise, best economics, but also the best technology. And the unique thing about us is that we're also Africa-wide now. So we're in Ghana, we're in Kenya, We are actually I would say the only Nigerian-owned company that is direct source to all these endpoints, both in Nigeria and Ghana as well, which is really our focus, and also Africa-wide. There are a few other Nigerian ones that are Africa-wide, but in terms of focusing on our endpoints as well. So yes, and our technology in terms of biometrics, we really do. I would say we work very hard to continue to stand ahead of editors.
Competitors. Okay, so if say I'm a developer and I want to build a fintech startup from scratch, I could use Core ID's infrastructure.
Yes, depending on your product, right? And I hate to say this, right? And my marketing people are going to hate me. We don't build APIs for developers, right? We build for businesses, right? So, and building APIs for developers, that's exactly why we had that use case where somebody got a fake text, right? And you just can't come and get access, right? I hope you're a developer in a bona fide company, right? Or you actually have a small business startup. So a lot of buy now, pay later, a lot of small credit lenders, but those guys have licenses and they're very serious, right? So yes, a lot of young founders can build on our infrastructure, but don't be a lone developer. Have a business.
Just playing,
exactly. Just playing in your backyard. Verify Me is not going to give you an endpoint. I'm sorry. You can play in our sandbox.
Oh, okay. There's a sandbox.
There's a sandbox. You can test, but you definitely have to be qualified because it's real information. The NDPR, regulations that we have to take into consideration. The security considerations even before API, NDPR. We have to be conscious about our customers as well, right? So we take that very seriously.
Oh, that makes sense. So you talked about the fake tech just now. So right now, you've talked about the fact that, okay, there's been little adoption in the retail side. But now with the cash crisis, where the CBN has said, hey, you guys should do it with cash and start using online transactions. And we now have to start begging traders to accept transfers or card payments and all of that. So don't you think this would be like a perfect time for more retail adoption? Because now, if more cashless transactions start happening, there's a chance that we're going to have more fraudulent transfers, fake texts, fake alerts, some even fake. It could even enter your mobile app, then it gets reversed after some time. So for all these kind of things, for you to be able to prevent fraud, for you to be able to protect your money and make sure that, hey, someone that just bought my whole supermarket did not just defraud me. So do you think there's an opportunity here with this kind of regulation?
I think there are opportunities as we tighten up who is able to provide services. You're going to see much, much less of that. It'll just be impossible to access that information, right? And that's really what it should be. We still have a lot of standards that we need to upgrade in terms of even, people who can walk into our, data center, in the US, for example, I always tell people this: you have to be a United States citizen to enter the building with a security clearance, by the way. You cannot even be one without a security clearance. And even sometimes I walk into, our data center in Nigeria, the compound, where we have it. There's all types of foreigners walking in and out. And, we can't walk into their data centers in their country. So there's so many reasons we have these lapses, with our data. There's so many people, with connections still, potentially that can get access. And, I just think that we need to get a little bit more serious. And it's not that they're not serious. They've registered 90 million people. So what, additional 50 million in 4 years, which is a success. They've built NIMSI. There's a working API, but it's not a place to stop. There's so much more that we need to continue to do in terms of regulation to secure this ecosystem and make sure these types of incidents are not occurring.
So we need to have that before we could see more widespread retail adoption.
Yeah, we definitely need to tighten up operators, tighten up regulation, make sure people can get access to this data, and then, I think we'll see a lot of reduction as well.
Okay, that's an interesting one. So, but now we're playing in a space that a lot of things are shaky.
I understand it's like Hunger Games right now.
So, yeah, final thoughts on everything we've discussed so far, so good. Number one, what are your expansion plans? You've teased us a lot without actually giving us. He told us there'll be announcement in the summer and all of that. But yeah.
I feel like, well, it's growing in all angles, right? Expansion plans are more markets, more places in Africa. So late last year, Ghana, Kenya. Expansion plans are more products. We've been pushing for the past year and a half heavily in engineering. We own all of our products, all of our rails as well, and more customers. You know, we probably have the largest number of customers in Nigeria, about 800 B2B customers alone signed on to use our API. So probably way ahead of any of our competitors on that as well. And more products, and also help solve the fraud problem. This is really something that we've been looking into for a while. And so we're very, very happy that there's some passion and appetite for it now. We think that we can get some good collaboration going.
Okay, so talking about this passion, where are you on the spectrum? Do you believe in covering one locality as deep as possible, or do you believe in spreading? But it seems you want to have a mix of both or something.
Yeah, so, I believe in going deep and before you go wide, right? So one of the things I always say is, when I moved back, there was this pressure to have all Africans on one endpoint. And it was so peculiar to me because I'm not aware that all Canadians or all Americans are one API endpoint where a company can detect every single one of them. Because there are different regulations. And also there's no one endpoint for every single person in Europe, right? But it's almost like we're trying to be pushed into one country status when there's different regulations, different requirements for KYC, different types of localization, engineering localization needed to deal with different countries. So we were very successful because we chose to focus on Nigeria, and mostly because it's my country. I just don't understand how, you can't tell me to go build another country and mine isn't built yet. So we didn't go with that philosophy, of collecting frequent flyer miles essentially across Africa. We stayed here, we built a lot of products, and then when we were ready, we started expanding, and we feel we're ready now.
Okay, so I guess this follow-up question. So I shouldn't have asked that question because it's bringing me more questions in my head. Well, yeah. Where are you on move fast and break things fast, or move slow and make sure everything is in order?
So there's always a balance, right? So we do move fast and break things sometimes internally. We like to build products quickly. We like to think about stuff. And I tell my team all the time, it's from Facebook, move fast and break things. But you can't always move that fast. And you just need to be conscious enough to know when move fast and break things can apply and when it's not the best approach for you.
So, final thoughts to founders and government people out there.
Final thoughts to founders and government people out there. So we're very excited to work together. I'm looking forward to collaborations. I know there's a lot of jackpot in our country right now. I think these things are going to change. It's our country. We can build it. We can make it better. I'm so proud of so many founders I see, people building. I respect, especially in Nigeria, founders in Nigeria, it takes a lot, right? The young guys and people we're kind of lucky because in our early stages were before this global crisis. So we've kind of, gone past. But the advice will be to persevere, always engage the government, be aware of, the regulation in your ecosystem, and see yourself as a stakeholder that has a right to participate. I think, that's really what it is.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us today. And guys, I hope you enjoyed this discussion. There are lots and lots of things. If you want us to bring him back, I will try to make that happen. Don't worry.
No worries.
I'm looking forward to your comments and comment section on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you're watching this. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And if you have any questions, I'll try to answer. If not, I'll just bring them to Malga here and we'll just try to get things done. So thank you so much and see you in the next one.